Hello again, this is part 2 of video 5 on exam strategies. And we were talking in the first part of this video about some of the things you can do before. Let me suggest 3 more. First, on the Twin site is a set of exam tips that I have prepared. It's about 11 or so pages long. And it gets into a lot of detail. Strategies about multiple choice, strategies about very short answers, and essays. I recommend that you read that. A lot of the strategies in the discussion there are useful in any class that you have to take a final exam in. But they are certainly directly applicable and usable in property class. So I highly recommend that you review them and internalize the suggestions that you can find in those exam tips. Next, prior to the exam, you should develop a strategy as to how you're going to approach the exam that focuses on your strengths. You know, a lot of times students come to me and they say, gee, I'm not very good at multiple choice. Or, I need to have enough time to outline my essay before I write it. That helps organize my thoughts. If you recognize what you need to spend more time on or work on, you can develop a strategy for how you're going to take the test that allows you to utilize your strengths. If you need more time to do an essay, then make sure that you structure the distribution of your time so that you got adequate time when you're addressing the essays. All right? You need to think about what you're best at and what you're not so good at and need more time to do, and then develop a strategy that allows you to take the exam and maximize your ability to do well because you're playing to your strengths and addressing your weaknesses. All right, you might say, well, I don't know what they are. I'm not sure. How do I find out what they are? And that would be the last thing, practice. You know, there are exams that are on the Twin site, prior exams that I've given. There are exams from other property professors here at the school that you can get at the library. Practice, practice, practice. Because what you're going to find when you practice is 2 things. First, as you do them, you're going to realize, oh, I don't know that topic. I need to focus on that. I need to get a better understanding of it. And second, you get to experience the test-taking, experience in all its good and bad aspects when you're doing it for practice. When I took the Delaware Bar in 2008, I did a lot of practice questions. You know, when the bar review course gives you these huge, thick books that are full of thousands of questions. You can't possibly answer them all. But if you spend time doing lots of multiple choice questions, you start to say, oh, okay. You start to develop sort of a rhythm, a pattern. You start to understand a little bit better how to do them and how you do while doing them. And with the Delaware Bar, I was able to utilize former exams to actually write out essays. You know, they tell you you shouldn't spend more than 45 minutes on an essay on the Delaware Bar because that's how much time you have. So I was able, by continually practicing and doing them, to not only sharpen my knowledge about the topics, but also to develop an internal clock, a sense of time. I knew when about 45 minutes were up when I was writing. And that was very helpful to me during the exam. So by practicing, you get to see and you get to experience and then develop some knowledge that you can utilize to help you perform better. Now, the last thing you need in sort of the before category is you need to recognize that 4 hours on a property exam or 3 hours on most other exams is a intense mental and physical experience. You need to be prepared for how that concentration will affect you. And by doing practice exams, you can start to see how that works. I found out, for example, again for the Delaware Bar, that after a couple of hours, I just needed to take a break. 30 seconds, stretch in my chair. Or what I ended up doing during the bar was I would just at about the 2-hour mark, I'd just go to the bathroom and be back. It was 90 seconds, but by doing that, by walking out and then coming back, just that little bit of movement and exercise and not looking at the paper allowed me to refresh and renew myself to be able to be better concentration-wise and just physically performance-wise on the second part of the exam. So by practicing, you can do that. So know that that's coming. Practice, learn how you handle it, but also think about making sure you sleep enough and eat enough and get yourself ready for the test that's going to happen. All right, so that's before. What can you do during the exam? Well, there's a couple of different things that I would suggest that you can do. First, when you come into the room, if you can take care of things before the exam even starts, like filling out your Scantron sheet or, writing your anonymous number on the blue books or whatever it might be, do that. Why waste the time during the exam if you can do it before? All right? But also, or if you don't get that, what you want to do is you want to figure out, okay, well, what's the lay of the land? What is this exam doing? Now, in my class, I will tell you during our exam review session about how many multiple choice and how many essays and things like that, so you'll know ahead of time. But sometimes you don't know that. You walk into the exam, and boom, there's the exam. You might want to take 20, 30 seconds, look through it. Okay, there's 15 multiple choice. There's 2 short essays. There's 1 long essay. So that you can then utilize that information to help plan how you're going to take the test. And in that regard, you want to make sure that you stick to your strategy. A lot of times you see the exam and you might forget and you just want to start working on it. But remember your strategy. I need to have more time to do this. I can do this faster. That's my strength. That's my weakness. Keep that in mind as you tackle doing the exam. And in that regard, remember, you don't have to do the test in order, okay? There's no requirement that you do it. If you want to start out by writing the essay because you want to make sure that you got the time you need for the essay right up front, go ahead and do that. It's okay, all right? You need to indicate what you're working on, but it's okay by me, certainly, and I think with most exam, professors who give exams, it's okay to move around. Do what's best that allows you to have the best opportunity to be able to answer the questions, all the questions, to the best of your ability. That's how you're going to score well on this exam. A lot of times I read exams and I see that students have, they get to the end where there might be an essay or something like that, and it's obvious they've run out of time. Okay? Time management is key. That's why I talk about this strategy so much. You want to make sure that you've got enough time. So you might say to yourself, I'm going to spend 45 minutes on this section. And if 45 minutes are up and I'm not done, that's too bad. I'm moving on to the next section. Maybe I'll have some extra time and I can go back and finish. But as soon as you start sort of giving up the time you were planning for something else, the more you're hurting yourself on some other part of the exam. All right? From my perspective, points are points. So you want to maximize your ability to get the most points possible. All right. So those are things to think about during the exam. Now, how about after the exam? Now, you might think to yourself, well, wait a minute. After the exam's over. Why do I care? Well, what I want to suggest to you are some things to think about that might make your post-exam experience be less stressful for you. All right? First, recognize that you probably did better than you think you did when you walk out. All of us have a tendency to focus on our mistakes, our errors. So you might have struggled with one question, and so you're focused on, oh my gosh, I didn't do well because I was struggling on that one question, even though you might have nailed the other 4. Okay? So we have a tendency to focus on the negative things and then to sort of balloon that up into some kind of prediction of how you did on the whole exam. I've had many instances where I've seen students who have said, oh, I didn't do well on your exam. And then when it gets graded, it turns out they did great. Okay? So don't beat yourself up because you're focused on one or two things that you thought you might have struggled with. You probably did better than you think you did. The second piece of advice I want to give you is probably one of the best pieces of advice I got in law school. No postmortems. And what do I mean by that? Avoid the temptation. And let me tell you, it's almost irresistible. But you got to avoid the temptation to try to sort of think about and analyze and figure out how well you did on the exam. All right? Rush back and look at your notes. Talk to your friends afterwards about particular questions. What'd you get on that second question? All right? And let me tell you why. There's two reasons. Number one, the exam's over. So if you run back and you look at your notes and realize, oh, I should have said bailment there, well, it's not going to change the answer. All right? But all you're going to be doing is then beating yourself up over the fact that you should have said bailment, right? Because you tried to figure out, or you went and you checked what the answer was. All right? Don't do that. You can avoid that. Second, when you talk to your friends about an answer, and they say, oh, well, I saw a bailment, didn't you? And you say, oh, no, I didn't. Oh, I must have failed. Well, that presumes your friend's right. They might not be, right? And so you could spend 2, 3, 4 weeks before your grades come out, and you're beating yourself up thinking you didn't get it, when in fact it wasn't even there. Or you did well on other things. So avoiding postmortems, trying to figure out how well you did, really just avoids the opportunity to beat yourself up and makes your post-exam experience a lot more pleasant. Right? So I highly recommend no postmortems. All right? You did however well you did, and you'll see what it is when you get your grade. All right. And the third thing I want you to remember is this. You are much more than your grade in any particular class. This is an artificial situation. It comes down to, 4 hours on a day in December, and it supposedly represents, what you did over an entire semester. But that grade is just a grade. I can't tell you how many times that students here at Widener didn't do particularly well in their first semester. It was not easy to figure out. This is a very new and very different way of thinking, like we've talked about in previous videos. But then, after the first semester, they get it. They realize this is how law school works, and they do great throughout the rest of their career. All right? So, do not get so hung up on the grades that it becomes a measure of your worth, that it becomes the be-all and end-all. Yes, grades are important. Grades can open up doors. But by the same token, they are not the only thing that makes you a valuable person. Look, you were admitted into Widener because we believe that you can do this. And I continue to believe that you can be successful in law school and be successful as an attorney if you put in the work and try hard. So, my advice to you is, get your outline, study it, practice exams, be ready, and I'm confident that you can do well. All right, that's the end of our video, and I want to wish you the best of luck both on the property exam, but on all your exams in law school.